In today's video, we are going to rank from best to worst ways that you can pay your Roth conversion taxes. Now, what you'll see is something as simple as how you pay your Roth conversion taxes can make a pretty big difference in how valuable this important strategy is for your retirement. Now, two things before we dive into the content. The first is that this is going to be a little bit more of general information. It will apply to 80 to 90% of you, but as with anything in retirement planning, some of you will need some added nuance to find the exact best strategy for your situation. Number two, this is going to be a little bit more of an overview. I'll link to videos in the description that will cover each of these Roth conversion paying methods a little bit more in depth. Without further ado, let's rank Roth conversion payment methods. Tied for the number one spot is paying Roth conversion taxes out of your taxable account. And without even diving too far into the numbers, we can just conceptually see why this makes sense. Remember that tax-free is tax efficient. Well, by paying taxes out of our taxable account, that's exactly what we're doing. We're effectively contributing to our Roth account. And think about it this way. If we have two accounts, a taxable account as well as a Roth account, and these are invested the exact same way, fast forward 10 years from now, we will have more money in the Roth account. And the reason being is because that taxable account has some tax drags. Anytime we have dividend or interest income, we owe taxes on that. Anytime we turn over the account and change investments, once again, we will owe taxes. Well, those taxes have a cost. So what we are effectively doing by paying taxes out of our taxable account is we're leaving more to be converted and less to be taken from our tax deferred or Roth accounts if we were paying taxes, let's say, out of the conversion. Now, if we dive into the numbers, this further confirms why we want to pay taxes out of that taxable account. If you look at the left-hand side of the screen, we can see by paying taxes out of the conversion, we ultimately end up with less that's converted. But we maintain the value we have in that taxable account. Well, as we move through time, that taxable account is going to grow because it's invested. But eventually, when we want to take money out of that taxable account, we will owe an additional tax on the money we withdraw. Now, keep in mind, I'm not including any tax drags, and so this gap that I'm going to show here in a second should actually be quite a bit wider if we include some of these tax drags. On the right-hand side of the screen, I have the same scenario, same growth rates, but now we're paying the taxes out of savings. And so we're emptying that taxable account and we have more that's being converted. Well, because that conversion is tax protected, tax-free moving through time, we can see that we end up with more after this 20-year period with paying taxes out of that taxable account. Now, the next question I'm going to receive is what happens if we have to sell an investment in that taxable account to pay for the Roth conversion taxes? And in most situations, unless we have incredibly large unrealized gains that we are now realizing, it still makes sense to make that sale, pay a little bit extra in taxes on the long-term capital gain side, and still take those taxes from the taxable account. Again, I have a video proving this in the description below. Method number two that's tied for the first place is paying taxes out of excess income. Now, you may have excess income for a number of different reasons. Maybe you have guaranteed income that's more than your income need from pensions, annuities, and Social Security. Maybe you have an excess RMD because you're over the age of 72 and you are forced to take more than you ultimately need. Or maybe you just have extra income while working. Any of the reasons you have excess income, using that excess income to pay Roth conversion taxes, once again, makes sense. And the reason is because it's tax equivalent to the first example we showed from paying out of your taxable account. And here's why. What are you going to do with that excess income? Again, the vast majority of the time, people are taking that excess income and investing it in a taxable account when they can't contribute to other accounts. Well, if you're going to do this, it's going to end up in a taxable account. And again, it's going to make sense to pay Roth conversion taxes then out of that taxable account. And so if we just allocate the excess income you have to paying that Roth conversion tax, we have an equivalent scenario as we would have had in the first example of paying out of your taxable account. Best method number three is one I find many aren't readily thinking about, and that's using your inherited IRA to pay Roth conversion taxes. Now, inherited IRAs have gotten increasingly more expensive as well as complex, and that's due to the Secure Act that was put into law in 2020. Now, most beneficiaries, specifically those that inherit IRAs from their parents, will have 10 years to fully exhaust that inherited IRA, meaning they have to distribute the entire account. Now, this is already one of the most aggressive RMD timelines you will face in any of your accounts. But furthermore, in 2022, they updated regulations as part of the Secure Act to say that most beneficiaries will now have an annual RMD they need to take in addition to empty the account out within 10 years. So we can already see the complexity start to build. Well, I think a great quick fix to overcome this complexity is to empty this expensive account out in a fewer amount of years and use this inside of your Roth conversion paying strategy. For instance, if you empty this account out within 2 years, you don't have to worry about annual RMDs. You don't have to worry about making sure you empty out the entire account within 10 years because you're emptying it out and paying Roth conversion taxes. Tied for the number 4 spot is paying taxes out of your conversion. And this is still a completely viable strategy, one that we use with a lot of our clients. Now, some advisors will tell you if you can't pay taxes out of your taxable account or some other method, you shouldn't be doing a Roth conversion. And this is just a ridiculous idea because if we think about how we're going to withdraw money from this account over time, let's say for income, we are going to pay taxes out of this account over time. And so if we pay taxes out of this account for a conversion, why is that any different? For instance, on the screen, when we use a 22% tax rate as the conversion rate, as well as a 22% tax rate as a withdrawal rate, we can see that we have an equivalent scenario. And so when we're paying taxes out of a conversion, what really matters is rates today versus rates down the road. If we're paying a lower rate on the conversion than we will have when we withdraw later on in retirement, we know the conversion is going to win. I have this shown when we look at the after-tax values at the bottom of the screen in the number 2 example. So if we look at converting at 22% and avoid paying 25% when we withdraw, meaning that there's a difference, we're paying less on the conversion, we can see that the conversion ultimately wins. And so when we're paying taxes out of the conversion itself, rates today versus rates down the road is what matters. It certainly is still a viable strategy to pay Roth conversion taxes right out of that given conversion. Now, tied for number 4 is paying taxes right out of the Roth IRA. And the reason this is tied with paying taxes out of the conversion is because these are tax equivalent scenarios. Now, I rarely have anybody pay taxes out of a Roth IRA unless they're younger than 59 and a half and they don't have access to pay those Roth conversion taxes out of other accounts. But if we think about this conceptually, this is very tax equivalent to paying taxes out of the conversion. For instance, let's say we were paying taxes out of the conversion. We did a $70,000 conversion paying a 22% marginal rate. Well, we would owe $15,400. Well, if we paid right out of the conversion, we would have $54,600 that ultimately went into our Roth IRA account. Well, if instead we pay taxes out of the Roth IRA, you're going to see that we end up with the same amount inside of our Roth IRA, and we end up with the same amount that's leaving our tax deferred account. And so these are the exact same situations outside of some minor nuance. Now, this leads us to our last and worst Roth conversion payment method. And this would be taking taxes from an account that will generate early withdrawal penalties. So this is specifically for those that are younger than 59 and a half and wanting to perform a conversion. Let's use a broad example. Let's say you're 45 years old, wanting to perform a Roth conversion, and you don't have some of those other accounts on the outside that we talked about earlier. And so you're looking at paying Roth conversion taxes out of your traditional IRA. Well, unless you have some sort of applicable exception, you will owe penalties for the taxes that you withdraw from this account. The conversion itself isn't classified as an early withdrawal, and so you won't owe penalties on the conversion itself, but you will owe penalties on the amount that you have to withdraw for taxes. So if we do a $70,000 conversion and we owe 22% in tax, we already know that that's going to generate $15,400. The problem is when you withdraw that from your traditional IRA, that will be classified as an early withdrawal. You'll owe 10% as a penalty on that additional withdrawal. And so you'll see that $1,540 at the very least will be owed as this penalty. But as we can see, when we look at adding in the taxes we owe plus the early penalties we owe, the actual tax rate that we'll be paying on this conversion will be a little bit higher. Now, interestingly enough, depending on your situation, this payment method doesn't rule out this conversion. If you're comfortable paying a higher rate when adding on that penalty, again, it might still make sense to perform that conversion. But after all, the fact that we would have an additional penalty for performing this conversion does make this the worst method. And so as you can see in this video, where you pay your Roth conversion taxes from makes a difference. Now, if you're going to be waiting till the end of the year to perform your annual conversion, you may want to rethink this. Specifically right now in 2022, as financial markets are down, it is a fantastic time to be performing Roth conversions. If you don't know why, click on this video right here where we talk about performing Roth conversions at a discount. Thanks for watching, and always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan.